Alright boys, 7 more epic champions that are absolutely worth considering taking up to max in raid. This series being going on for quite a while. All of the champions that we've covered so far in the series are going to be pasted down below in the video description box. And so yeah, as you can see, we've been through a hell of a lot if you take a quick peek in there. But you know what? 7 more worth looking at. Starting off with good old Priest Ornn, because frankly, I don't know how the hell to pronounce all of this nonsense. This guy is a solo killing boss machine, man. Can solo his way through Dragon at 25 and Ice Golem 25. He might need a little bit of help getting through the waves, so a couple of champs in there that can deal with the waves quite efficiently is going to help you out. But once you get to the boss, this guy can just take it from there. Regeneration set, absolutely claps some cheeks. His kit, man, double hit on the A1. Each hit has a chance of placing a strong version of poison. Good stuff. On the A2, attacks one enemy 2 times. It's another double hitter. 100% chance of instantly activating one poison debuff on the target. It's on a 3-turn cooldown. Just a crap load of boss damage, kind of speaks for itself. And then he has an attack all on the A3. Has a 75% chance booked on a 3-turn of placing 2 poison debuffs and poison sensitivity debuff for a couple of turns. Also a little bit of self-healing as well, but just a crap load of poison damage. And then just to really top it all off, what makes him so good at soloing these bosses is partially his passive. Whenever a poison debuff is activated on an enemy, increase this champion's HP and defense by 5%, stacking up to 25. And so the more health you've got, man, and you're stacking it like crazy with this passive, the more your regeneration set is going to be healing. And so you can just weather the storm through just about any boss and do great. But yeah, namely Ice Golem, Dragon, good old Priest Ornn. Good stuff, man. Next up, we've actually got a few champs that I want to cover right here in the Sylvan Watches alone, man. Next up is going to be a healing queen known as Ayla Lifebraid. Now, to be honest, Ayla's main strengths come in the form of her A3 and her passive, and I'm going to cover the passive first, man. This is cool as hell. It's almost like a soft, relentless set that can activate at any time on any champ once per turn. So has a 12% chance of activating an instant turn effect on this champion or an ally after using any active skill. Yeah, it's just great. Really comes into its own over longer fights, like Hydra, like, well, a few of the Doom Tower bosses. Just a solid little extra bonus passive, quite unique as well in what it does. The A3 places a block debuffs buff on all allies for a couple of turns, then heals all allies by a swollen 30% of their max HP. This is on a 4-turn cooldown. Pretty solid. Also, now, her A1 is a little bit on the meh side. Attack one enemy, restores a little bit of destroyed max HP either on herself or the ally with the most destroyed max HP. And her A2 is an attack one enemy, places a strong increased accuracy buff on all allies for a couple of turns. Also has a chance of placing sleep on a single target hit. That's all fine. Mostly her skills, her toolset, pretty decent going into Hydra, not bad. Very, very good going into Frostbiter in the Doom Tower, right? Because you get that block debuffs buff effect, where you can just block the freeze from landing on the rest of your champs. But also, of course, Frostbiter is placing that gnarly decreased accuracy debuff, and so if that does land, if that does impact you, it can be a real pain in the anus to go ahead and land the HP burn. And so just having the increased accuracy buff as well, it just makes it very, very clean as a support option going into Frostbiter. She's also pretty good going into Griffin as well in the Doom Tower, just because of the block debuffs, you know. That's kind of like team comp dependent, of course. But yeah, man, she's a clean little support. Again, you can take her up to level 50 and she can do a pretty good job for you. I was deeply considering taking this gal up to level 60, but in the end, I thought, you know what, she's doing enough work for me at 50. I'm going to put those resources elsewhere, man. Next up, we have got my promo link down below in the video description, man. Hey, if you're looking to start off a new raid account, a new free-to-play journey, for example, then what are you waiting for, man? Sign up to raid using my promo link down below to unlock a copy of Tagoar once your account hits level 15. Sweet support champ. And then also Rector Drath as soon as your account hits level 25, man. It's the best beginner promo link going, so if you're looking for a clean slate or just a new, again, free-to-play journey, then my promo link is the best possible way you can do that and support the channel at the same time, man. So thanks to anybody who does sign up using that happy little link. Anyways, we ain't done with the Sylvan Watches, man. We gotta talk about good old Pan the Bohorn. Now, something to bear in mind about Pan the Bohorn is that his modifiers are actually really solid, meaning this guy can do some really solid damage. The A1 is a double hitter, each hit with a 50% chance booked of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn, and so we're already thinking right now, of course, about hard mode Fire Knight, where those freezes and those multi-hitters become very important indeed. So just solid and good control even outside of Finite. The A2 is an attack all enemies before attacking, brings his own increased attack buff and increased speed buff on himself for a few turns. And this is bookable down to a 3-turn cooldown. Very, very good. He's going to help you out against the waves, and like I said, this guy can indeed smack, and his smacking capabilities just become even more apparent as well with his A3. Attacks one enemy 3 times, also solid into Finite by the way. Each hit will ignore 10% of the target's defense. Each hit also has a 100% chance booked, I should say, of placing True Fear debuff for a couple of turns, and if the solid into Arena too. By the way, if you're just starting out in Raid and you pull a Panther Bohorn, you can build him out to be a pretty solid Arena-style nuker too, just because he has all of this extra little kind of crowd control utility built into his kit. Very, very nice indeed to have. And if the target is a boss, then it instead has a 100% chance of placing a Weaken debuff for a couple of turns instead. Quite good, man. Competition is quite fierce amongst the epic nukers, of course. You've got some rivals to deal with the likes of Magnarr and stuff, and of course, Oboro. But you know what? Pan isn't bad. He's definitely worth some consideration if you pull him quite early on. And yeah, Sylvan Watchers, you're gonna need a nuker for Faction Wars anyway, so Pan might be your man. That rhymed. Next up, and sticking on the topic of nukers, we have good old Slixus Stripehide. This, of course, was a component for quite a recent fusion, but this champ is very, very solid in his own right, and honestly, the Lizardmen kind of lack decent epic quality nukers, and certainly rare quality nukers, and so once again, if you end up pulling this guy and you just need a nuker for your Lizardmen, he can be worth taking up to a 60. Again, obviously, all of this is account dependent, you know, but for YouTube clickability and algorithm purposes, I have to market every video as in, oh, you must 6-star these champs, you know, whereas really, come on, we've all got the ability to kind of analyze our own accounts and decide whether or not we actually need a champ like this to go up to 60, but he's worth considering is the point, okay? Double hit on the A1, each hit has a chance of placing stun. Nice, a little bit of extra control, not too dissimilar to Pan, by the way. The A2, another double hitter. Each hit will ignore shield, increase defense, and strengthen buffs, so just penetrates right through. Each hit will also heal this champion by 20% of the damage inflicted. But the real beef of Slixus' kit, of course, comes once again in the form of that self-buffing attack all, which for him is on his A3. Attack all enemies before attacking, place an increased crit rate buff and 30% increased crit damage buff on this champion for a couple of turns, bookable down to a 3-turn cooldown. Just very, very excellent indeed. It means that you only have to build this guy with 70% crit rate, so those stats can go into percentage attack and crit damage and those kinds of things, or speed, you know. Yeah, and he's just a very, very clean option indeed for your Lizardmen epic nuker. Good old Slixus, man. Don't sleep on this guy. Next up, a champ that apparently I've been sleeping on like crazy. I've heard a name mentioned every now and again. People talking about, oh Sinesha this, Sinesha that, right? Me, total noob. There's a lot of champions in Raid, okay? I've been playing the game for like 6 months or something. I feel like I should have stumbled into what Sinesha's all about by now, but it just took me a while to get around to it. You know, I'm sure there's still other champs that I'm kind of sleeping on too, so I do appreciate your guys' comments that point me in the right direction and let me know when I'm sleeping on something. Sinesha's one of those champs. The A1 is an attack all enemies, place an extra hit on enemies with less than 50% HP after the first hit. Already quite interesting stuff. The A2 attacks one enemy, puts the target's skills on cooldown. How long it puts the skills on cooldown, we'll never know, I suppose, because it doesn't tell you in the tooltip. Does it actually put their skills on max cooldown? Because if so, that's crazy as hell. Anyways, also heals the ally with the lowest HP by 25%. Probably of their max HP. I don't know, man. These older champs, dude, often have tooltips that are just not that clear. I feel like a newer champ would always have their tooltips just much, much more clear. Yeah, I don't know, less subject to interpretation than Sinesha's, but there you go. And the A3, equalize the HP of all allies. Well, what the hell does that mean? The tooltip's about to tell us, man. The HP levels of all allies will be brought up to the level of the ally with the highest HP. It should just say percentage level of the ally with the highest HP, by the way. That would be even clearer, by the way. Then heals the target ally by 10% of their max HP. So what this actually means is if your whole team is basically dead, but you've got one Giga Chad, you know, defense-based champion who's still sitting there at like 90% health, dude, you're going to equalize everybody's health up to the 90% health guy. This could easily be like a 70% heal across your entire team and then a small heal on your defense champ, you know? Massive. There's a reason that this thing is a 5-10 cooldown, even fully booked. It's just that strong. And yeah, It's crazy as hell. Now, Sinesha, again, you can just leave her at level 50 and find a good amount of value from her that way, but when it comes to raw healing, you're hard pushed to find any champ that is better in this game, of the epic quality at least, when it comes to just raw healing output, man. She's worth a consideration for taking up to max, I think, for that reason alone. Next up, dude, it's another recent fusion component. It's gotta be good old Buff, the Skunk, man. Look at this guy. Skunk or Badger? Oh yeah, he's rancid. Skunk, of course. For God's sake. I always forget that for some stupid reason. This guy's quality, dude. This guy's actually really, really good in terms of utility, man. So, the A1, double hitter, chance to place healing reduction debuff for a couple of turns. Kind of whatever, right? The A2, attack all enemies, 100% chance buck to placing strong version of decreased accuracy debuff on all enemies for a couple of turns. Again, solid. Also increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn. So, decreased accuracy debuff on enemies. This is already solid for bosses like Frostbiter. Honestly, decreased accuracy is just solid into a lot of places, so I'm not going to rattle all those off. But increase the duration of ally buffs by 1 turn. Dude, this guy can be a component in your clan boss team. If you're using the Wixwell Infinity Shield team, this guy can be one of your buff duration extenders because it's on a 3-turn cooldown, and he also brings an increased accuracy buff as well for a couple of turns, right? And so he brings the buffs to help empower Wixwell's shields. He brings the buff duration increaser on the A2. He's got everything he needs, man. He could actually conceivably fit into that team pretty nicely, man, as a solid upgrade to something like your Valerie or your Hellborn Sprite or whatever kind of budget option you are using. Yeah, brings increased accuracy for your team, brings decreased accuracy for enemies, just makes him kind of solid everywhere, to be honest. But we haven't even read the rest of his A3, which is removes 2 random debuffs from all allies, then heals them by 10% of the max HP on a 3-turn stinking cooldown. Really, really, really good debuff cleansing abilities, makes him solid into a lot of areas of Doom Tower. And honestly, dude, I know for a fact I'm going to click on his reviews and they're just going to suck. Okay, I mean, to be honest, like, okay, they don't completely suck, but I still feel like people tend to, in the short time that I've been blasting raid and the short, like, small amount of fusions that I've done, I feel like oftentimes people tend to sleep a little bit on the fusion components. People get so focused on the legendary that they don't realize just how good the epic champions are that they are using in the fusion sometimes. And I think that both the Rancid is one of those guys, man. Just so much utility packed into an epic champs kit. He's also HP based as well, so you can build him to be tanky as all hell. Yeah. I think that he more than warrants a place on this list of potential 60s. And finally, another champ that I feel like I've slept on for way too long. Dude, good old Oboro. This is a champ that's kind of difficult to judge as a newer player, but the more I kind of dip my toes into the Hydra waters, you know, dude, this gal is insane. Oboro is absolute madness. Quick kit breakdown. It's an attack 1 enemy with a chance of placing 50% chance of placing strong decreased defense for a couple turns on the A1, but will attack all enemies instead if the target is under 4 or more debuffs. Dude, you've always got 4 more debuffs active on the Hydra head that you're trying to kill, right? This becomes an attack all, and its attack modifier will then spike from, if my sources are correct on my other screen, from a 2.6 up to a 4.2 when it's attacking all enemies, which smacks, dude, for an attack all on an epic champion. This is a hell of a lot of damage. Decreased defense is always good. Yeah, she's just insane into Hydra, dude. This is crazy as hell, right? The A2 attacks 1 enemy 2 times. The second hit has a 100% chance booked of placing of transferring all debuffs that are on this champion to the target. The first hit also has a 100% chance of stealing all buffs from the target when attacking under Veil or Perfect Veil buff. And how do you get that Veil or Perfect Veil buff going? Well, that's all about the A3, right? There's a 30% increased crit rate buff and a strong increased crit damage buff on this champion for a couple of turns, then attacks 1 enemy. The modifier in this is crazy, by the way. It's like a 6 point something, I think. No, it's not. It's a 5.6. But you know what? That's fair enough, right? Because you can only build this gal with 70% crit rate, and she does the rest with the A3, so she absolutely slaps all the same. Then place a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack is critical. She smacks with this thing. The modifiers on the double hitter A2 are actually crazy as hell as well. It's like a 3.15 attack modifier on a double hitter A2 is kinda nuts. The passive actually buffs her up with a revive on death buff as well for 3 turns whenever she gives herself that I think it's a perfect veil she gives herself. Yep. on the A3. She just does a lot. She's extremely survivable because she basically always has the perfect veil buff up. Again, you build her with 70% crit rate and modifiers are crazy. Just a really, really, really good Hydra DPS champ. If she's got any kind of downside going for her, Oboro, it's that she's a little bit Hydra specialized. She can do a little bit of work for you, of course, into some of the normal dungeons. But you know what, kind of like most nukers can, you know, most nukers can do a decent job for you going into things like Dragon, Ice Golem, whatever. But when it comes to Hydra, she's really kind of specialized for that job, just because of her survivability and the ability to attack all like that with her A1. Over the course of a longer fight, oh my god, the value that a skill like that is going to get is just mental. No man, that is going to be all for this one. Hey, if you ain't already, go ahead and make sure to input good old code GameLeap to not just help to support the channel, but also to get your hands on 10 free experience brews, 100,000 silver, and 1 free energy potion. I forgot there for just a second, my brain lagged, but there you go. If you've already used code GameLeap, make sure to share it with your clanmates and help your brothers out. And yeah, if there are any epic champs you feel like I've missed in this long-running series so far, covering all of the best epic champs in Raid Shadow Legends that are worth considering for 6 stars, then make sure to comment them down below, man. Let's keep the series alive. But now, thanks for watching. Do enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to catch all of you guys just a tad bit later, man.